either want to burn him alive or have revive. Okay. So we're going to move along to firepower. Going to roast the sea lion. Let's see. Sea lion is the second Magicite boss if you proceed clockwise. Here's a quick overview. He has less health and less defenses too. We have defense 10,355, but a high resistance. Definitely trying to. Seems like they're trying to push you in the physical route here. Metal conditions just exploit his weakness to fire. Sure. Uh, Slightly weak to fire. Um, Absorb ice. Null earth. A null water and resistant to everything else. Moveset is we got a nat. AoE magical. But single target magical ice, single target magical ice. AoE piercing ice. This Mad Blizzaga totally seems like an issue. And that seems like a fairly strong physical attack as well. But yeah, Mad Blizzaga seems like what we're looking towards. Ice resist seems pretty powerful here. Alright. Sea Lion presents the strongest mixed threat of all the Magicite bosses. Although he's nowhere near the tankiest. He has both powerful AoE magic and powerful AoE physical attacks, so it's hard to completely protect yourself against his attacks. Sea Lion is resistant to all elements except for fire, which he carries a partial weakness to. As such, the focus of this guide is going on about the variable sources of fire damage and targeting fire damage relics in current and future banners. So first off, we have Chain Faraga. 2 hits of fire, magical fire, nothing to write home about, but it will serve its purpose. Meltdown, 3 hits of magical fire in Earth Wind. This is excellent if you have a strong mage. Valley Garmanda. This is also excellent, but the hones, it's limited by its hones, so this is more of a for speed clearing, where you don't have to worry as much about hones. Um, Blazing Twin Strike, 2 hits of physical fire. You probably want to find a better way to use your slots. However, if you have Cloud's USB active, you can dive him to Spellblade 5 and use this for some good damage. This also applies to the previous boss. I forgot to make note of it. Cloud USB will be extremely good native on any of these bosses where he is able to exploit the vulnerabilities. And on the previous boss, he could use Spellblade 5 and use Engulfing Twin Strike and do that. And on this boss, he can do the same thing, but with Blazing Twin Strike, and he'll be able to do the same with Thundering Twin Strike, and finally with... I know there's a fourth. Why is it eluding me? There isn't a fourth. Okay, nope, there's only 3. I'm an idiot. No, Earth, Wind, and Ice are all kind of a low multiplier, and definitely a whole lot less effective. I suppose. I mean, I don't know. I don't actually know how broken Cloud USB is, so maybe the 2.4 multiplier is fine. Um, but I'm at the moment looking at the 3.2s and saying that those are the OP broken shit for Cloud's USB, where the 2.4 is significantly less powerful. Next, we have Fires Within, Monk 5. 2 hits of ranged physical fire damage and self-heal 30% of max HP. Very good for sustain, but it's the least damaging option here. True. Fire Veil. Again, ninjas make an appearance. 1 hit of piercing magical fire damage. Piercing is always very good against Magicite bosses. However, ninjas get 2 5-star magical abilities, and one of them is the fire one. 2 hits of piercing magical fire damage. In this case, ninjas have a doubled version to use. An excellent option. Do not neglect Fire Veil completely, though. It's far cheaper than Smoldering Fire. It can make a good filler. If you're willing to hone up Smoldering Fire, you could bring in a blank character just with, I don't know, utility soul break or something with Ninja 5 and still do a ton of damage with this ability. Piercing options that do a lot of damage, like the two Ninja 5 star abilities, are very, very powerful. This one, not as powerful as the next, which we will get to. And Ruby Spike, which is an ability that is not released yet for a sharpshooter. 2 hits of ranged physical fire damage. This is stronger than Blazing Twin Strike baseline and significantly stronger if you have a ranged weapon equipped. So shooters can also make heavy use of this ability here. Also, another one I want to make note of that is not on here is a new monk ability that comes out called Burning Crush, which has a slowish multiplier at 2.72, but there's a reason for that. And that is because it is a 4 single attack, plus 20% critical chance. This makes fire monks extremely potent in this fight, especially monks named Refia and Zell. This is probably the best thing we have available to us for abilities, except the ninja ability. So Refia is the god of this fight, essentially. And that's before she gets her USB. Once you have your USB, you can annihilate. She just becomes the living embodiment of a fire-spewing turret. Though I think the Refia's visual theme is that she kind of just runs into things and it does damage. So that's another ability to keep in mind. Monks make excellent fire damage dealers, and they'll probably at least occupy one slot that you have here. Fire soul breaks. Most soul breaks will be excluded again. Inner Fire, Matoya's BSB. This gets some extra hits on entry for exploiting weakness, but unfortunately it provides neither in peril or in fire. It does cover, so it's at least does that. This is going to be a huge theme in the Matoya, Lulu, and Pain elements. You're going to see them often, where they can do the damage if you need it, but they're not spectacular at anything that they do. Or Gordon's BSB, let's face it, you're not going to use this for its damage, and unfortunately its commands aren't helpful, because its commands are breakers, so they don't really do much here. But Gordon can Wrath and Trust, and Last Stand is very nice, but you should probably search for better options for your limited team slots. Agreed. You're going to do fire damage on entry, and you're going to get Last Stand, and at that point you can Wrath and Trust, but it's a kind of a weak entry, so you definitely do want to look for elsewhere. Palom, yes, we'll get to Palom. Palom is a very much upgraded version of Lulu and Matoya, and you'll see why when I get there. Next, we have Refia's Dance of Carnage. This is the premier physical fire BSB and one of the strongest physical BSBs in general. Refia's BSB is absolutely something to aim for when it shows up when you want to shore up your fire at soul breaks. This is just disgusting, and it gets only better when Refia gets her banner with the next Final Fantasy III event. It's just gross, the amount of fire damage that she can output. Dark Flame, DK Cecil BSB. Why is this here? It's Dark Fire. Interesting. So the entry is Dark and Fire, but unfortunately the commands are Dark and Non. He has 0 access to fire abilities. I guess he just included it for completion's sake. Please. No, you know what? You should be chasing this. This is essential for clearing the fight. Moving on, we have Palom's BSB. This is pretty much Matoya's BSB, but better. He has the exact same entry, but his commands sacrifice a little potency for being power chain commands when they hit a weakness, like against Sea Lion. Lack of any way to get end fire on him keeps it from being the top option, but it's still pretty good. Palom's actual damage output is actually fairly high. And that's going to be a theme, or it has been a theme in like ever since I started streaming and started trying to offer my bastard advice to people, is that things that provide instant cast provide DPS in ways that you did not expect they existed. Because your mind sees the numbers appearing on the screen and the severity of those numbers, and it has less ability to wrap its head around the frequency of those numbers. So there's a reason why people celebrate soul breaks like Desh, like Sid Reigns, like Alphino, and now like Palom, because instant cast increases your damage output by a large factor. And what's nice about Palom's Burst Soul Break is he is able to apply that power increase over multiple elements. So it's actually a very handy Burst Soul Break to have for these Magicite dungeons. Rupicante BSB. Rupicante, of course, has an Fire BSB, of course, because he is the cloaked fireman. It's actually a really cool reproduction as boss fights mechanic. Oh man, chewed that one to pieces. Reproduction of his boss fight mechanics, allowing him to cloak himself and trigger fire damage counterattacks against physically tagged damage from enemies. However, it's more AoE focused than single target, so it's not ideal for this fight. Agreed. Galoof BSB. This is one of the Imperiled Fire BSBs, and arguably the best one thanks to its utility. I would say it's good. It's tied for the best with Balthiers. We'll get to that. Where Galoof is more utility focused, while Balthier is more Imperil stacking focused. But moving on, both of Galoof's commands give single target percent-based healing in addition to damage. Having Imperil around it is a cool idea, even with Sea Lion being on the bottom half as far as tankiness is concerned. Galoof can also bring fires within, or, remember, the new 5-star 4-hit fire damage ability, which is a bonus. However, if I was using Galoof, I would totally just be using... likely just be using his first command, which is similar to Rafa's, where you just do 4 times single target fire damage and heal somebody for 25% of their max HP. Very, very good Imperil burst for this fight. I know Galoof isn't usually considered one of the better characters in the game, but I believe that this burst is the best thing about him, and it's actually fairly good. Hand of the Crystals, we see Bart's OSB again. This is going to be a common sight in these guides, because it's the only soul break in the game, which hits 4 different Magicite boss weaknesses. That's not completely true, because we do have a Holy one now. Deleted BSB also hits 4 elements, but he goes for the Holy Root instead of the traditional crystal elements. As always, it's not going to be the best damage option in a vacuum, but being usable against 4 of the 6 Magicite bosses is an upside. Agreed. And the fact that also probably unnoted here is that Bartz gets access to his USB, which is phenomenal for any of the 4 elements, and fire is one of them. So remember how highly I spoke of Bartz's USB on the previous water boss. That also applies here, and that will also apply on the earth boss. That's why it is so potent, because it's one of the best options and across different elements. So for the purposes of Magicite, Bartz's USB is probably the best relic in the entire game. Next we have Krill's BSB. This is an Endfire Mage BSB, but Krill sacrifices potency for status infliction, which Sea Lion is immune to. It's not a huge amount of potency, and his BSB is still usable and better than Rubicante's, but Vivi's, just as an example, outshines her. Next we have Krill's OSB. Krill's OSB needs 4 attacks to make it slightly better than a standard Mage OSB, which is easily achievable unless you're speedrunning the boss. Very valid option for the fight. Terra OSB, this is a perfectly standard Mage Fire OSB, and I can tell you from experience that all you need to speedrun Sea Lion is a fully Legend Dive Terra for a Trance mode, this, her Relic Legend Materia for dual cast fire, and 2 sources of Imperil Fire. Well, I mean, that's kind of a loaded way to start out this sentence. This is all you need. 2 sources of Imperil Fire, her Relic Legend Material, which is on a unspectacular banner, but it does have Stragos BSB, so there's that. And fully Legend Dive, which is forgivable because Terra with her USB is awesome. I was able to get a 25-second victory by using Terra and a tiny bit of glue for damage. Without the LMR, we call them LMRs, okay? And second Imperial Source, Terra is still more than able to solo kill Sea Lion within 1 minute. Yeah, only everything. No problem. We're cool. But Terra is one of the premier fire damage dealers in the game. And her USB, which we will look at in a second, actually makes her one of the better fire damage dealers. Terra USB. This is Terra's X mode. One of the first released in the game, at least in JP, and will be the same here. While it deals a little less than half damage of her OSB, it greatly boosts Terra's magic and gives her 25 seconds. That's important, and that's what makes Terra's USB as potent as it is, because a lot of X modes only last 15 seconds. So it boosts Terra's magic and gives her that 25 seconds. It's excellent for machine gunning out spells and OSBs, and it means you don't need to bring as many mage buffs if Terra is going to be your primary DPS. Next, we have Locke's BSB. The second Imperial Fire BSB on this list. It's got a 4-hit command and a non-fire damage Mug Bloodlust command. The former will help with some chip damage, while the latter does very little except buff Locke's own attack a very small amount. So you're pretty much just going to be using it for the first command. Not an ideal Imperial Fire for the fight, but honestly, you don't need your Imperial Leader to put out amazing DPS, so that's okay. Agreed. Definitely would prefer Galoof here, because he actually has utility on top of his 4-hit command. But it is Imperil. And as long as you have a primary DPS engine that can feed off the Imperil, as noted above on Terra's USB and OSB, then you're in good hands. Locke OSB. This one has the same potency as Barth's OSB, despite being only 2 elements instead of 4. But it has the advantage of having half the cast time. Once again, it is an option, but not the best option. At least Locke can use Ruby Spike for additional fire damage if he runs out of Life Siphon or waiting for an Entrust. It's true, it has a lower multiplier. Not a terribly good option here. The relic that comes from Locke's OSB, however, is awesome, so there's that. But he can be an option for you if you have his OSB. Because he can Ruby Spike, he eventually gets access to Shooter 5. For the fire damage, and he can also Life Siphon. So, Locke CSB. This will be coming out in Superfest. This is the Fire Chain. The additional bonus for this is a wall break on entry, but that is unfortunately not amazingly useful against Magicite bosses. Fire has an easier time than some elements in driving up the chain, but it's not the best. Yeah, it's not one of the best chains. Like all the chains in the game have, do a lot of hits to drive up the chain. The damage, and then an added effect. Like the last chain that we had was Tidus's, where he grants, I believe, Quick Cast 2 to the entire party. Not yet in Global. Eventually it will get that buff, but it's not there yet. And that would be useful. However, this one is not, because the wall break is not terribly useful for Magicite bosses. Next, an important one to take a look at, because this banner is good in many ways because of Terra's LMR and Sabin's fire capability and Strago's awesome burst soul break. So keep an eye on this. A physical and fire BSB that includes an iteration mechanic and a built-in reward for iterating. But the cost is that the entry doesn't deal very much damage until you're way over the soft cap. And that's true. I think you need well over 1,000 attack. And then it only does okay damage. An option, but there are better. Much better. It unfortunately is not a very good fire burst soul break. Next we have Sabin's OSB, which shows up on the same banner. This is one of the strongest physical fire OSBs. If you're hitting a weakness, which you will be against Sea Lion. Definitely a benefit to having to suffer with Sabin's substandard BSB is he has one of the better fire OSBs in the game. Sabin can buff his own attack as well, be either his BSB's Command 1 or Meteor Rush. Oh, Jesus, sorry. Okay. Next, we have Vincent has a hybrid BSB here that's got a standard 4-hit physical command and a standard 4-hit magical command. By itself, not that great because it doesn't have any standard or damage boost to that. However, it is also very noticeably a Radiant Shield granting Burst Soul Break. That is arguably in a Magicite dungeon better than him having Fire, which is it is an excellent source of damage in this fight, in particular because Sea Lion loves AoE. This is one of the best Burst Soul Breaks that you can be using in this fight. And Vincent's USB had just come out, and because it was on a Final Fantasy VII event, very, very few people pulled for it because so many people had blown their entire load on the Cloud USB banner that had came before it. So it was a very rarely pulled event, and that's why you're not going to get much information here. Another hybrid soul break for Vincent. This is his X mode, which gives him Fire, plus 30% attack or magic, depending which is higher, and quick cast 1 whenever he deals fire damage. Honestly, I'm not sure how good this is. Not worse than Terra's USB at the least. It is very, very good, just like Terra's USB, and actually ends up being better, slightly. This is also an excellent option for the fight. Why does it end up being better? I know because it can be attack or magic, so you can use it on either physical or magical team. And that's one of the nice things is because you're going to try to put all your eggs into either the physical or magical basket for any his high quick cast. I will check that. What is his X mode? Vinny Bag of Donuts. Cerberus. Status. It's just quick cast after using a fire attack. It really just appears to be the same thing as Terra's USB. It's just really the advantage is my team physical or magical, and he fits on either of them. So you can go after it, and then, a lot of the way we build our team is, by just picking up shit or targeting good banners and being like, okay, well, that's got a fire thing on it, but it's either physical or magical. In the case of this, it can be either. So you can build either team around it. In my case, I'll likely be targeting the Vincent banner because I won't be targeting the Cloud USB banner. And since I have Refi as BSB, Vincent and Refia will be my peeps for this fight. And Terra if I get her USB off of the Extreme Fest. Who knows if I'll be pulling because, the banners, they change, and there's no way of me knowing whether the banners will be worth it. So after Vincent's USB, we have Sephiroth's OSB. Completely standard physical OSB as far as damage goes, although it is Dark Fire instead of Element None, and Sephiroth actually has element options for both. If you have it, it is a better option. The Bartz's are locks, but that's not really saying much. Not that great here. Sephiroth definitely leans towards the darkness side, and he's very, very potent at doing darkness. This fire is just, if you've got nothing better. Vincent has clones of Terra's Legend Materials. Yes. Almost complete clones, yes. So he has dual cast LMR, and he has a trance mode Legend Materia. Just like Terra does. That increases his quick cast potential just like Terra does. And gives him huge stat bonuses. So Vincent is one of the premier fire damage dealers, definitely. And the fact that Vincent's BSB gives Radiant Shield, which is just going to be a whole lot of damage in fights like this, is really nice. Anyway, Irvin's BSB is one of the top tier support BSBs. Unfortunately, doesn't really help you much in the fight. Great to have outside Magicite dungeons, though. Agreed. C for USB for Sea Lion purposes, this is a single target super soul break with a huge self-heal attached. It has the potential to deal more damage than Bart's or Locke's OSBs, but C4 has a very low health, has to have very low health for that to be true. Not great here. Proof of Existence, Vivi's first burst soul break. This is the actual factual. Thanks for throwing those two words at me in rapid succession. Basic, standard, and fire mage burst soul break. There actually aren't very many better than Vivi's, though they do exist. There are certainly worse options, though. Vivi's is really just 4 hits of fire on first command, 4 hits of fire, or 2 hits of fire in area of effect on the second command. It is the basic BSB, and good, but you can probably do better here. Next, we have Vivi's BSB 2, which will be coming out in the Final Fantasy IX event when it drops. Vivi trades in his End Fire for triple element and stacking party buff. This comes with a Stitch in Time command, always nice, making actually pretty much strictly stronger than his BSB 1. True, I would prefer the double magic buffing, because he buffs the entire party for magic, and he can buff his own magic with Stitch in Time. I would prefer this over having End Fire, so it is definitely just better than his BSB 1. The famed Vivi OSB, identical to Terra's OSB, except on a worse character. Sorry, Vivi lovers, I like him too, but he's not very good in Final Fantasy Record Keeper. Sad but true, I am a Vivi lover. I love Final Fantasy IX, and Vivi's probably my favorite character in it. Not named Kuja, but he's not really that great here. However, this is one of the legendary relics in the game, where it is a plus fire damage staff, and I would love it. Definitely love it, so I could throw it on Vincent. Knight's Honor. We have Steiner's BSB. Physical Fire and Fire BSB. Steiner's is actually the best for raw damage against C-Line, thanks to the 5th hit on his Command 1. Truth, sort of. It has a higher damage potential than Refia's because it has in it the ability to 5th hit, but I think despite this is a very, very strong fire BSB. However, Refia is just the only one where you're realistically saying, okay, I'm probably going to cap on all four of my hits. Where Steiner's is good as long as you're exceeding 40,000 damage, which is going to be somewhat difficult for him to do, unless you're heavily imperiling the boss. Next we have Steiner's OSB. Steiner's OSB is actually excellent as well. Slightly stronger than Sabin's against fire-weak enemies and weaker otherwise. That makes it the best physical OSB option for this particular fight. Truth. I love Steiner's OSB. It is similar to the Locke and the Bart's ones, where it has a reduced multiplier. However, it has that conditional where it increases multiplier to a 13 instead of the normal 12 when it's exploiting weakness. And the meta in the game has definitely moved towards, I'm only going to bother using this if I'm exploiting weakness anyway, or otherwise an OSB doing 22,000 damage isn't really adding much value to my team. So Steiner quietly has one of the better physical OSBs in the entire game. Next we have Amarant's BSB. This is a wannabe Refia BSB. It is an Endfire physical monk BSB, but instead of the Dark Bargain command, he opts for a second high crit attack and doesn't have the bonus critical hit chance from the entry. Strictly inferior, unfortunately. Yep, Amarant gets pooped on by the game, and it's not pretty. We censor out Amarant just because of the travesty that he is. Oh look, Lulu's BSB again. See what I said about Matoya during the Palom BSB? Except remove the part about the entry damage, only useful for coverage, unfortunately. Oron BSB 2. Oron gets a physical and fire BSB with a Dark Bargain command. It's not Refia's, but it's better than most of the rest of the pack. I'd, at first glance, for physical, probably put this behind Steiner and Refia. Oron USB. This is a massively useful utility soul break, granting a uniquely stacking triple debuff. Attack, defense, and resistance. Very nice. Sentinel and party-wide magic blink in addition to the fire damage. This debuff is not the debuff is not terribly relevant, and unfortunately, C-Line's dangerous physical attacks are AoE. but it's a super nice relic anyway, so maybe not. Just maybe not for this fight. This USB is awesome. I love it. Just only slightly good for the fight because it would have been better if the magic blink could have been more useful. But like he says, the physical attacks are what define the fight. Next, we have Blitzking for Jack. Jack's OSB is a weird gimmick where he gets more damage out of the more soul break gauge he gets. At maximum gauge is very good, but you probably don't want to wait for that long to start spamming it. Yep, you suck, Jack. Sorry. Braska BSB. Braska gets an Endfire Mage BSB with a summon mode. Toppling summon mode on him gives a unique magic buff and also bumps up his command 2 to 5 hits. This is a second best Mage Fire BSB in the game currently. Well, not currently for us. But it will be by the time Magicite is introduced. Next, we have Shantoto's BSB. Shantoto's BSB is End Thunder, so it's not ideal for this fight, but it at least does have triple Magicite element coverage and fast cast commands. If you're desperate for a little extra DPS, this will do the job. And that line basically says it all about how I feel about Shantoto's BSB. It's an excellent lightning, but the coverage is basically there for show for the most point, and there to help you if you really just need it. Or it's one of those weirdo bosses that they introduced specifically to use this BSB soon after we got it, where you could where they switch vulnerabilities and you could exploit both with the same command. They wanted to make it feel more useful than it really is. However, it's still good. Fast cast is useful because, Dash is cool, but Dash at least gets a stitch in time, and that's why he exceeds that. Anyway, that's lightning. I don't want to talk about that here. Balthier BSB. This has the unfortunate distinction of being a machinist BSB before machinist was made into a damage skill set. Focus on status infliction, which is just not relevant ever. Balthier's BSB 1 is laughed at and has been for a while. However, next we have Balthier's BSB 2. They righted the wrongs. Our fourth but not final Imperil Fire BSB is much better than his first. In addition to having an actual useful bonus on entry, it has a 25% chance per Command 1 use to stack additional minor Imperil Fires, and the Command 2 grows in power the more Command 1s you use. It's not quite as straightforward as Steiner's, but it's easily the best Imperil Fire BSB for actually imperiling. Agreed. Wario would put this for the best as far as damage dealing is concerned. Galoof's would be the utility-focused best Imperil. I like this Bristle Break a lot. And it I think it's the first instance where they said, okay, you know what? Machinist is not going to be for inflicting statuses. Their 4-star capability is fine for that. We're going to turn Machinists into the people that inflict Imperil. Which is really cool. I'm glad they finally turned the leading man into a good character, because he was pretty garbage before this point. Balthier OSB. Standard Physical Fire OSB. Balthier can buff his attack with Steel Power, so that's nice. True. But yeah, I mean, you're looking for that option for him. Thancred BSB, our fifth and final Imperil Fire BSB. Physical, as of all of them are. Thancred has the highest damage potential in a vacuum, but unfortunately, Sea Lion uses too many AoE physical attacks for Thunk to keep his blink on and maintain his 6-hit attack status. Without that blink, he has a subpar 3-hit attack. True, and in a lot of scenarios, true. Unfortunately, it doesn't really have that good of a BSB because the gimmick is too weird. And the same thing applies for Ida's BSB. Ida has a very gimmicky BSB with a full breakdown entry, which doesn't matter here, a self Stone Skin BSB command, or self Stone Skin 30% command, and a unique iteration mechanic which lets her attack super quickly. Unfortunately, the full breakdown isn't useful. The Stone Skin command deals no damage, so you're wasting time for not a whole lot of benefit, and there's no way you'll ever keep her in Stone Skin active to get Grease Lightning damage stacked up high enough. This is just not a very good soul break for the fight, unfortunately. Nope. Ida USB. This is a very selfish physical and fire USB, giving Ida instant Monk Cast 3 and Physical Blink 3. Unfortunately, that just isn't really what we're looking for in this fight as a nice package, but don't get me wrong, it's just not designed for use here. This is where I have to correct, because this changes because the 4-star Monk ability for fire was not available at this point in the game for Japan. That's why it has it written that way. But Burning Crush, the introduction of Burning Crush actually makes Ida's BS or USB actually quite powerful because you can instant cast Burning Crush and do a hell of a lot of damage with Ida's USB. So don't listen to the poor review that's given here. Instant Mug Cast 3 after using the USB, and then going ape shit with that crit ability. Just pretty damn good, and there's no way you can deny that. Enochian Firaja. Here we go. Finally, we reach the best Mage and Fire BSB by far. Papa has a clone of Maria's BSB, except the threshold for getting 6 hits with Command 1 is higher, and it's all fire non-damage instead of Earth X. This is one of the best damage BSBs in the game, and one of the best soul breaks for this fight. Absolutely. If you have this, you're in a pretty damn good situation for fire. Where Refia wins the physical game, Papalimo takes the magic crown. Papalimo OSB, this is a copy of Krill's OSB. The same comments which apply to her apply here. Delita's BSB, one of the few quad elemental BSBs in the game. This one covers 3 of the Magicite elements plus Holy. Unfortunately, unless you're running crit rate up buffs of some sort, it's not really remarkable other than that. It does have extra critical damage on entry in both commands, so bonus crit damage helps its damage a lot. And similar to what I did with Bart's on the previous Magicite fight, I want to go into Delita's USB, which was released after the scope of this, and it definitely rights a lot of the wrongs that were inflicted upon Delita with his with his BSB. We have Delita with Hail to the King, which, similar to Bart's, is a single enemy and 4 element USB, but this is Holy Fire, Lightning, and Ice. Where it has 10 single attacks, and with a higher multiplier of exploiting weakness, great for this fight, and a lot of the other fights, and grants Bushido an instant cast 2 to the user, both very good self-buffs. Bushido is a very nice status that gives him plus 30% attack, plus 25% resistance, and 50% critical chance. As was noted in his BSB description, this is a very good thing, and if you can use Delita in a few of these fights as a strong entruster, or entrustee, by using both his USB and BSB together. Very, very potent character. If you just have his USB, that is also good as well, because Delita has strong element coverage because of his strong Spellblade access. As well as Holy as well because of his Night access. I believe he's only Darkness 4, so not Dark, but really you're looking for the Fire, Ice, Lightning, and Holy to take advantage of his USB and BSB. So by granting Bushido, and the instant cast too, remember, is very, very important. Increases his damage output incredibly. So ideally what you're going to probably want to do if you have both of these, and you have an Entruster in the party, is use Delita and Life Siphon and Entrust. So you have 2 bars to use, and use his USB, instant cast out his BSB, and then just go nuts with his BSB commands, or probably his BSB commands since they're 4 hit instead of the Spellblades. Higher multiplier, but only 2 hit. Because with the 50% crit rate and the increased crit damage, you're definitely going to be blowing past the 20,000 damage cap on the 5-star Spellblade abilities. So Delita goes from being kind of a throwaway sort of pain sort of character here, actually becomes one of the better and higher DPS characters that can turn into an engine with an Entrust battery at his side. We have Type 0's Ace Burst coming next, our final Mage BSB of the list. This also has the nice property of giving Physical Blink 1 on entry. Ace has a Stacking Magic Boost Command 2 and a Quick Cast 5-hit Command 1 if he's in the front row, which he should be. With this being such a physically focused fight, that can come back to haunt him. It would absolutely be better if he were in the back row, but I mean the things we do for damage output, right? Making this a very nice soul break indeed. It does not unfortunately give him M-Fire. You need his USB for that. So I wouldn't consider this one of the best fire bursts for this fight, but competent if you plan on pulling on type 0. Ace's USB gives him his end-fire source. So he, with these both together, could actually become a strong engine with an entrust source. It also chases his fire attacks with an additional fire magic, but unlike Edge's fantastic USB, the potency of attack hand is usually extremely low. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage. But he's a super gambler, unlike Bart's, which gets a 50-50. He gets a very, 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 very low chance to do 13 hits, which obviously deals a ton of damage by a chase that is attached to, I believe, doing any fire attacks. So these two together will be a potent combination for the fight. Probably not as good as the Lita, but still good. And they both do appear on the same banner. Next we have the Lon BSB, standard 4-hit, 2-hit Dark Bargain, and Fire BSB, except his 4-hit command, Command 1 gets higher potency against attacks, or against targets that are weak to fire. It's actually deals pretty respectable damage. The problem is the only good relics on the banner are the BSBs. This appeared on the World of Final Fantasy event, and were probably 2 of the 3 only good things that you could pick up on this banner. Lon and Rain BSBs are actually good soul breaks by themselves. They are legitimately good. And they came on really unique and awesome relics, and I would have liked to pull on the banner for that, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. There was some bad low end on it, despite that Sarah's excellent healing BSB was also on it. Those were the 3 prizes. Unfortunately, just wasn't enough for me to get me there. So that is all the soul breaks. I'm going to go over my banner list to see what was released after this. We're at Final Fantasy IV again. Final Fantasy 15 is Non-Elemental Earth and Healing. Final Fantasy 11 is No Fire. Final Fantasy 5 is, again, Bart's with his USB is going to go apeshit here. So, awesome. Final Fantasy 6 is headlined by Shadow's Dark Damage and Setser's Breaking. Final Fantasy 2, don't care. I believe it does have fire damage, though. Scott, if you wanted to pull for Final Fantasy 2 synergy, Scott is a new Final Fantasy 2 character. I believe he's Gordon's brother. And he's a fire spellblade and can actually be a competent character for this Magicite dungeon. Final Fantasy Tactics is good. Very good. On the first banner is more for other elements. I will be breaking up the VODs, yes. I'm not going to make people watch the entire 12-hour stream for all of it. But the second banner of the Final Fantasy Tactics event has Delita's USB and his BSB on it. And it's actually a legitimately good banner, just comes overshadowed by the first banner and its splendor with Rafa, Malik, and Meliadul. Next we have Final Fantasy III, and this is a very important event. The Final Fantasy III event is where Refia basically gets her own banner, and she turns into Fire Goddess with her USB and her BSB and her LMR. Also a good banner in its own right. Also has Onion Knight's Burst Soul Break. So yeah, if you want to look to just increasing strictly your fire damage output, and you like the Refia, because who doesn't like the Refia, then the Final Fantasy III event is up your alley. I'm considering pulls on it, but it is so far away that I'm not making any commitments or anything. Another Final Fantasy 15 banner, which is lightning focus, so don't care. Final Fantasy 8, which does have fire on it. We have another fire monk in Zell. Zell switches from being a non-elemental monk to a fire monk. Final Fantasy 7. I think there's more fire damage on that. I think Rude is fire damage. Who fucking cares about Rude, though? Pardon my French. Wow. Doesn't like Refuse BSB because of her low defense. Well, we all can't be stellar evaluators of the power, right? Oh, that's an interesting observation. Anyways, moving on. Final Fantasy IV, I think, is more strong for its holy capability. Holy support dark and water. And earth. That's actually pretty strong for earth, too. So, no fire there. So, what did we had? Final Fantasy VIII, Final Fantasy III, Final Fantasy Tactics, and Final Fantasy V. So, there is actually some fire options that won't be listed here. So, keep that in mind in case you don't really feel for any of these banners. And I don't blame you if you don't feel for any of these banners. I will likely be supplementing my fire capability in Refia right now with Vincent and Bart's. Those are the two banners that I will be pulling on. First, we're going to start with the stuff that we've already passed. A Love for All Time, this was the Final Fantasy VI lock banner. You can essentially get complete lock out of this banner, but there's nothing else relevant to Magicite bosses, and lock's offerings aren't the best choice for them. Truth. Second Anniversary, Refi's BSB. Yeah. This is a very commonly held opinion, and this is one where I definitely agree with the masses. Refia's BSB is fantastic. This is your last opportunity to get it. Was true at the time. We didn't know that it was going to be re-released on both. It was also on Extreme Fest, but that's subject to change. But it does appear on the static banner with Refia's USB on it, so it will not be the last chance to get it. The Bart's also includes Bart's, whatever. These banners are gone. Rose of May, this banner is gone. God, VV OSB. I want you so bad. If I pull VV's OSB on the 5 Mithril OSB draw for Extreme Fest, I'm going to lose my shit. I agree. Any time Refi's BSB is available is a win for everybody. This banner is full of fiery goodness. It was a pretty good fire event. World of Final Fantasy event. We already talked about that banner, and it's three wins. Women of the World. Not that great. No real fire options here. Just Shantota with the off fire. Twin Airs. We had the Ratha. Yeah, not much. Delete's BSB is one of the worst in the game for DPS. Unless you have party crit buffs to support him. Was truth. But with his ability to give himself party crit outside of his counter tackle soul break, with his USB, he gets much better. But this banner's dead and gone. This banner's gone. This banner's gone. This banner's gone. This banner's gone. This banner is active, so we're at present day now. Krill's BSB may be slightly substandard for Abyss boss, Magicite bosses, but her OSB will get the job done with just a few turns of casting to prime the pump. Use up your R2 Meltdown, and it's slightly better than any other Fire Mage OSB. Go-Go and Bart's also get M-Water BSBs on the banner, but neither is leading the pack in that category until Bart's gets his USB. Explorers of the Abyss 2. Galoof BSB. Much better banner. Only Galoof's excellent utility in Peril BSB here for Fire Relics, and 3 out of the other 4 noted relics are only for the eventual Holy Dark Magicite bosses. So this probably shouldn't be a pull priority for those looking for Magicite help. Truth. It's still a pretty solid banner outside these for specific fights, though. Next, we have Extreme Fest, which we're only going to go into the 3 guaranteed relics. These are only guaranteed relics on the banner. Cecil's and Greg's USBs are for future prospects and not, or just as stat sticks. But also present here in JP were Yuna's Excellent USB, Lunith's N-Win BSB, Lars's Top Tier BSB, and Alphino's BSB, which is the last appearance of it to date in Japan. I do believe it came back one more time on some point after this guide. Fusion's BSB, excellent. Realm's BSB, excellent. Papalymo's BSB, excellent. And Alphino's Super Soul Break. And JP, this was the banner to pull on for this festival. If it remains mostly unchanged for global, it's worth very serious consideration just in general. I agree. 2 and 4 were JP's best banners of the festival. And especially this banner for Magicite coverage. Because excellent healing from Yuna and Realm. Super Fire has the 2 best magical wind soul breaks in the game. 30th? Okay, sure. I don't know that much about 30th banners. Those I haven't looked at very much. Because those are way up in the air. I don't even know what to think about those yet. Those are very much subject to change because of the way the festival schedule has gone completely nuts after Superfest. So Terra Fire, Cecil Holy, Gilgamesh nowhere because Gilgamesh is bad. Iron Will Fist 2. I don't usually mention Legend Materia relics because they're rarely. Oh, I have not had my music on this entire time. I apologize. It's like the best part for me for doing all of this. So it started up again. But Terra's here is 25% chance to dual cast fire abilities. Yep. So that's really good, and I mentioned it when I evaluated the Final Fantasy VI event. It really sucks that Terra's USB appears here and her LMR appears here. Separating them from each other really just stinks. It is very, very nice, the LMR. Sabin's OSB is one of the best physical options for the fight, although his BSB takes too long to really get rolling. Also present is Strago's amazing BSB and Leo's Holy Earth and Imperial Holy Super Soul Break. Good banner. Overshadowed by the first banner in the event, but still good. I don't know what even made me realize it. And this is probably the best banner for fire other than the Refia banner. We have the next Final Fantasy IX event, which was leapfrogged by the Final Fantasy XIII event coming out tomorrow. This banner is excellent for fire relics. Steiner's OSB is the strongest physical OSB against Sea Lion. Vivi's BSD is essentially a pure upgrade over his BSB1 and provides super strong coverage to 3 Magicite bosses. Steiner's BSB is the strongest pure damage physical and fire BSB, and you actually have a 3% chance to Imperial Fire on this banner between Steiner's Super Soul Break, great, 10 armor, and LMR, which is a chance to Imperial Fire when using Spellblade abilities, which is unfortunate because I do not believe that Steiner's BSB is Spellblade abilities. That's where Steiner runs into a little bit of trouble. Also present is Zidane's gimmicky BSB2, which does at least provide N-Wind. And that's an unfortunate addition to the banner, is Zidane they give him some bad gimmicks, which spoils Zidane's character. And he never really becomes all that good. His USB does right some of the wrongs, but not enough to get him way up there into the higher tiers of Wind, which is a crowded area because Wind is such a big pool of an element. We have Victim of Conspiracy. This is the Final Fantasy XII event. An important banner because Balthier's BSB2 appears here. Both years, much improved BSB 2 also uses the word premieres, providing the best source of Imperial fire in the game, at least as far as actually imperiling the enemy goes. Also present on the banner are Rex, party buff coverage BSB, and Bosch's relatively high damage holy tank BSB. This is the unfortunate position of being immediately following Small Spark Great Resolve and it's an outstanding fire banner. However, this is a good banner if you're looking for Final Fantasy XII synergy, where you can pick up a few good things on it that are helpful in Magicite dungeons as well. I think the best part of the banner, to be honest, is Balthier's BSB 2. I like Vaughn's USB, and I think it has the potential for putting out a lot of damage. However, where Vaughn falls off, I believe, is that he's only a average to above average option in Magicite, because he's more of a stat debuffer, and that's where his damage generation comes from. And with stat debuffs being not all that valuable in Magicite dungeons, makes it less than stellar for Magicite dungeon purposes. Next, we have the Final Fantasy XIV event for Sid 14. This really has pretty slim pickings as far as Magicite dungeons go, with the main attraction actually being Sid Garland's BSB for use against Hydra. It's basically Balthier's BSB 2, but in Pearl Earth instead. I don't know, I've looked at Enleer's and I find that to be incorrect, but we will get to that when we get to the Earth Magicite. Minfilia's excellent party buff USB rounds the banner off. This banner is kind of bad, but it's got its decent points on it. With Minfilia's USB and the fact that it does have Ishtola's BSB and Ishtola's wall. So if you can make a benefit from those, it's a decent banner, but that does have nothing to do with fire. So I'm not going to go into that right now. Return to the Enterprise 2, definitely much more fire bonus. This is an excellent fire banner with Thancred's Imperial Fire, Papalymo's OSB and BSB. Both of which are at the top of their respective categories. Papalymo's Little Fire Potato. It provides absolutely no help for anything but fire, though, so keep that in mind. Next, we get to We Are Albed, the Final Fantasy X event. Let's be honest, you're not going to pull here for fire relics. There are plenty of excellent fire relics around here, but none of them are really fire-centric. Because what do we get here? Lulu's BSB. And it is our favorite relic to hate, and for good reason. We Are Albed. 2. A little better. Much better, actually. Braska gets the second best Mage and Fire BSB after Papalymo, and Oron's USB is astoundingly good utility, but the fire pickings here are a little slim. It does have the Hyper Break, Imperial Water USB, and Titus's standard Physical and Water BSB to fill it out at least. This makes this a bit of a nice hybrid banner. It's got decent fire and decent water available to it. So this is a good banner to look forward to if you're lacking a bit in fire, lacking a bit in water, and lacking a bit in Final Fantasy X. I was at one point thinking of pulling on this banner, but I elected not to. I forget why. Probably, oh yeah, because I'm going to be pulling for Vincent, and I feel like that's going to be my fire help, and water is going to be helped out by, water and fire is going to be helped out by my pulls on Bart's banner, hopefully. God, please let me get Bart's USB. Next we have the Type 0 event, and it definitely has some fire going on here, because Ace, both his USB and BSB are on it and work together well, so you can trust battery him to do a high amount of fire damage. It's a little awkward to use him at Magicite fights because his M-Fire isn't actually on his BSB. And his USB is focused on providing buffs to his BSB. You kind of need both to make him really shine. That's what Entrust is for. Also present are Deuce's Onion Knight Buff Healer BSB, which is good. Will be very helpful in Magicite fights, and Nine's and Wind Dragoon BSB, which is fine, but as we've said many times before, the Wind Magicite dungeon is not kind to physical characters, and Nine isn't particularly stellar as a character anyway, so you probably have better options than him. Pure love guided by shooting stars. I can almost guarantee you that our event will not have such a mouthful of a title. C for USB, again, let's be honest. You're not pulling here for the Ice Relics, not C for Sword of Fire USB, and you're not pulling here, and if you're pulling here for Ice Relics, it's because you prefer Squall as a character to those in Banner 2, because it's one of the single best Magicite boss banners to come out in the next 6 months. Truth. But I will get into that banner more thoroughly when I talk about Ice and Wind, because the second banner of this event, as he says, is one of the best. It is an amazing Magicite boss banner. And next we have the Dirge of Cerberus banner for Vincent's BSBs, Vincent's everything. I want it all. Vincent's USB is basically just a hybrid version of Terra's with a shorter duration. Oh yeah, that's why I mentioned that earlier on Terra's. So Vincent's USB does get the hybrid version, but Terra's gets the 25-second X mode, while Vincent's USB only gets the 15-second. It is a big difference there, and unfortunately, it's still amazing, but it makes Terra's much better. Terra, please, God, please get a good BSB 2 in the future. Terra with a good BSB and our USB and Entrust battery could rival Refi in damage output. Maybe that's taking it too far. She could get close, though. His BSB and Super Soul Break are nothing to specifically target unless Vincent was your favorite characters. I disagree with that. For this fight, his BSB is actually really potent, and he even mentioned it upstairs in the Super Soul Break category, or the Burst Soul Break category, where it's doing fire damage as well as adding Radiant Shield to the party, which is going to have an immense damage output for him. So I disagree with that, and he disagrees with that. It's sending a little mixed signals on the banner. Shulk's BSB is one of the best DPS support BSBs in the game, while Seth BSB's 2 is odd. I don't know the apprehension about Seth's BSB. I think it's awesome. However, it is dark damage. Well, which is fine too, because there's going to be a Dark Magicite dungeon. Sid's Shout also makes an appearance here. So this is a really good banner for multiple reasons. Seth's BSB is excellent for dark damage dealing, as well as being a relic for Shadow to use if you plan on going after Shadow. Shulk's BSB is a super BSB. It's a direct upgrade over Franz, and I love Franz, so please give it to me. The reason why Shulk's BSB is better than Franz because the entry is instant instead of 2.5 second cast, and the commands are ninja cast speed instead of normal cast speed. As of now, yes, I believe so, Carbar. And an added benefit is that by getting Shulk's BSB and making her a good character for you, she becomes a character worth investing in for numerous reasons, or multiple reasons, because there's already one other reason to invest in her. And this is a very important reason, specifically related to Magicite dungeons. And I'm going to go into that right now, even though I did this recently when I evaluated the Final Fantasy VII banner. And that is Shulk's Legend Materia. Shulk does get a Legend Materia relic, which increases the duration of her stat debuffs by 30%, but that's not the reason you're gonna want to invest in this character. It's this one right here. It's grants haste and instant cast 3 at the beginning of the battle. Remember all this stuff I've been talking about with Edge and Delita and Bartz and Ace and these super characters, these super DPS engine characters that require an Entrust battery to take full advantage of them, in which point they can take over battles with their immense DPS output by themselves. There is one Entrust battery that rules them all, and that is actually Shulk. Because of this Legend Materia. By granting haste and instacast 3 at the start of the fight, this allows her to run a Striker as a record Materia, and allows you to first action, Wrath, for 270 Soul Break points. Second command, Wrath, for 270 more Soul Break points. If my addition is correct, that is 540 Soul Break points, not including the what you're generating from getting hit. And it takes 500 to fill a complete bar. So you have 3 turns of Instacast. In the third turn, you entrust. She is the fastest entruster in the game because of this. She is the premier and best entrust battery that we have available to us in Global, because the only other one in the game that has access to this record materia is unfortunately Moro, who is another support 4 that is Japanese only. Moro is a character from Final Fantasy Legends 2, which is a Japanese mobile game, which means unless that gets ported for some reason over to Global between now and where this event would air, that means we're probably not going to get this character. So Moro for Japan right now is that character, and you can ask any player that plays Japan and does Magicite bosses and speed clears and stuff like that. They'll tell you that Moro was the guy, and then Shulk became the second. However, for Global, Shulk is the girl. Yeah, and that's it. So that is an important thing to note about this banner, is by getting Shulk's BSB, and that it makes you feel less guilty about it, I guess, because Shulk could probably just sit on your bench and you just spend a whole bunch of motes, both 4-star and 5-star on her, to get her legend materia, just so you could use her in Magicite, and it'd still be a good investment. But I like the idea of also getting her really good BSB and making her a valuable character outside of Magicite dungeons instead, as well as being a potent debuffer and damage dealer. She's a celerity support, like Fran, and has a high damage output potential. Right, Ripper Rush as well. I think she has a 10-hit entry on her BSB, and Ripper Rush is really good as long as you're able to do 13 hits before using it. It has a multiplier that rivals 6-star abilities. So she's a very high DPS support, and I don't know, I think she's a pretty good character. And that was before she had the potential to be the entrust battery of the future. So, nice little benefit on this banner. I really like Steph's BSB here. And I also like Vincent's BSB. So I really think this is one of the better fire banners that we have access to. That has a lot of extra stuff on it. Whew. We have Fated Showdown Awakening Power 1. This is the Edge banner. Exceptionally strong banner overall, and contains the absolute strongest water relic in the game, and what some people argue is the best healer relic in the game. I would argue that, yeah. It is only so-so for fire. Yeah, like I said, I know a lot of people would just consider a level 1 character. However, the banner is excellent, and if you are able to divorce yourself from the fact that Dirge of Cerberus was not a good game, it is actually a very powerful banner. I'd even argue that it's a more powerful banner than the Cloud USB banner, just because of how much more it has on it, where Cloud is very top-heavy. Fire has a lot more options than some of the other elements, but that mostly means it has a lot more chaff to dig through until you get to the actual good stuff. On the other hand, it means that even with a lot of incidental pulls, most players should be able to come up with a viable party for C-Line. The best fire relics are any of the mage OSBs, Sabin's or Steiner's physical OSBs, Papalymo or Braska's mage BSBs, and really any of the Imperil fire BSBs. Imperil, in my eyes, has probably become more valuable than an element soul breaks over time, just because their ability to stack and the ability to be used with teams that throw the dime a dozen and elements on there. Next we have all mages except Braska get legend dives, as do most of the Imperil characters, so once again you have plenty of options. The best fire banner IMO is small spark great resolve. I agree, the Steiner VV banner. It has 3 great fire relics and 2 more usable ones, plus a tiny bit of coverage. Another strong option is Return to the Enterprise 2, which has the best mage OSB and BSB, plus a subpar Imperial Fire BSB. Yeah, I'm not really as hot on this one. I think Papalymo is awesome by himself, but I'm not really thrilled with the banner otherwise. But it has no real coverage. Yeah, it's completely fire based. And the fire, I still wouldn't really feel hot about taking the Imperial Fire BSB that shows up on it. Ironwood Fist 2 is also worthy of strong consideration because it features Sabin so prominently and actually has some good things to back it up as well. In addition to this list, we can add the Final Fantasy V Bart's banner, which has Bart's USB on it, who can output a lot of fire damage. Not overall a strong fire damage banner, but has a lot of coverage outside of fire damage, so it's good for Magicite in general, as well as fire. Plus fire items are fortunately relatively common, so there's no pressing need to keep an eye out for them specifically. Not true in the case of fire monks. Those are still kind of rare. Many of the best fire relics called out above are actually plus fire on them, and both mage weapons and armor with plus fire are common. That's true. Plus fire physical weapons are a little rarer, yeah, for fist weapons. So if you think you're going to end up with a primarily physical team, you might want to keep your eyes peeled for those. Of note, we have Zell's USB, which is a plus fire all realms fist weapon. Gladiolus's OSB is a plus fire 6-star weapon. Sword, so that'd be a valuable thing for Bart's to use. Not Gladiolus, for what weird reason that weapon gives him the fire capability, I do not know. Because he's pretty much completely limited to Earth.